The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of Green Acres and our guests. These general gardening tips and suggestions may work for you, as well as those from alternative sources. When using any garden products or tools, read and follow all labeled directions. And learn how to make your yard summer strong at bewatersmart.info.
The Green Acres Garden Podcast is the podcast dedicated to helping gardeners hone their growing skills while we celebrate our love of plants. So whether you're new to growing or a seasoned gardener, you're sure to learn something new. Join the fun as we have conversations with world-class growers, passionate green thumbs, and professional garden experts from Green Acres Nursery and Supply. Listen every week. We'll answer questions you didn't know you had. Hello, everyone, and welcome one and all to the show. My name's Kevin Jordan, and I love plants and gardening, and I hope you do too. This is the Green Acres Garden Podcast. We have an amazing episode for you this week. I know I'd say that every week, but this week I really mean it. I got to do a little field tripping with my buddy, Austin. Always be listening blank. What's up, Austin?
Hey, Kevin. I am doing good. And welcome back to all of our listeners. Where did we go this week, Kevin?
We tripped out, and we went up the hill, up an elevation to about, 1,300 feet to Grass Valley, California. We went to Dawn Gardens, the private home and property of Barry Friesen, longtime landscaper, landscape contractor, former teacher, got his degree in landscape architecture from UC Berkeley. So he's very experienced, well-known in the garden community up here in Northern California, and he has carved out, I mean, just an oasis.
It's spectacular.
A paradise on earth, just heaven. It's incredible. I'm talking colorful. Like we went there in fall, colorful trees, dogwoods, maples. You got your beech trees. There's so much color up there right now. It was stunning, absolutely. So give me a little background on Barry. He bought this land years ago, 12 acres. 4 of it was kept wild because it's so hilly and it's difficult terrain. 8 acres, fully landscaped, fenced in, protected. He has over 2 miles of pathways and trails in this landscape. And we've been to some incredible home gardens, Austin.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like some of the most beautiful landscapes and backyards and side yards and front yards. I mean, I've been blown away almost every time we've got. This was next level.
Yeah.
So 8 acres, fully landscaped. We're talking beautiful mature oaks and pine trees. So when he went in there, he tried to keep as many of those native mature trees as possible, carved out some of that brush and undergrowth, and really just did some incredible things.
Yeah, it's really cool. He referred to it as a demonstration garden.
3,000 different species and cultivars of plants.
It's incredible. So he was a designer, and he would bring his clients up, he said, from the Bay Area and show them, this is what these plants look like at maturity. This is what you can do with them. And he's talented with the art of design for sure. And there's so much to learn from this guy and so much to see too. So
I was so inspired.
Yeah. I mean, I had a blast there. And what's really cool is that we were able to take some video when we were out there too. So this is one of those times where I'm going to point our listeners to go check out the YouTube video that we'll post that goes along with this. Kevin, you even shared a longer video, which I really love. Tell me about that.
Right when we finished recording, I was like, I got to capture this before I leave. I brought my family up there. So I actually had my wife and my 3 boys with us, and we were just running around. Our oldest son is 3, so he was like loving the trails. And so I bust out my phone, took a quick video. I put it up on my own YouTube. It's a very tiny, it's the world's smallest garden channel, by the way. It's called Field Trippin', and it's my latest video. And honestly, my channel's so small, it's like I don't get a lot of interaction. People be loving it, Austin.
I love that
it's
too.
It's so beautiful. Just instantly you can see, I mean, there's the trees, bright yellow, fiery reds. It's so stunning just to look at right now. And it's the middle of fall. You'd think there's not a lot going on heading into winter. So gorgeous.
I didn't realize I love dogwood trees.
Yeah. Oh, dogwoods are gorgeous.
I mean, I don't know why we've never really gone over it. You've probably mentioned it, and I didn't realize that you really sometimes do need the visual to show you the magic of something, right?
Certainly.
There's some dogwoods there that were just standing out from a beautiful landscape as these big focal points of beauty.
And well, their color is great right now, and they bloom in the spring. So they're pretty sick. I mean, Japanese maple collection. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
unlike anything I've ever seen. So many different varieties. I think he has. I mean, I think he said a couple thousand trees within the landscape. Over, like 400 to 500 of which he's planted himself, if not more, at this point. Really incredible stuff. And like you brought up, it's just inspiring. I think a lot of people, maybe some of our listeners, if you're ever thinking about touching up a landscape, rejuvenating one that already exists, or just starting from scratch, but you're not sure, what to do, or what plants might look like when they get mature, or even how to kind of clump things together, or how to order your garden. Look in these videos. You will get inspired by what Barry has created, because you will just see like, oh, that's how it looks. And some of his plants and the plant selection, everything's labeled. I mean, 8 acres, thousands of plants. Every single plant I felt like out there had a label on it telling you exactly what that plant was.
And that just speaks to Barry and his mindset. He is a special guy, and he's here to teach and to share his knowledge. So let's go into his interview with that mindset and see what we can learn from him, because he is a wealth of knowledge. He's been doing this his whole life, and he has a lot to offer. So I hope our listeners can get a lot out of this interview. Let's go ahead and jump into our interview. We sat down with Barry at his residence at Dawn Gardens in Grass Valley, California. And let's go ahead and jump into that interview now. Here we go.
Now I have my own garden, because I've always had a garden, but this one is...
This is beyond a garden, Barry.
Yeah,
this is that's an understatement for sure.
Okay, I'm Barry Friesen. I'm a retired landscape contractor, and I have this big garden, 8-acre garden in Grass Valley, and it occupies most of my time, but I'm happy to share it with other people. It's my hobby, and it's my lifetime job, really.
Would you say it's a bit of it's like, because some of them are such great demonstrations of what's possible with space and utilizing the hardscape. I've seen rocks and pathways, but you have so many different types of plants in your landscape. Would you say is it a demonstration garden? Is this you do some experimentation?
It's a demonstration garden for my Bay Area clients. They would come up on weekends, and then I'd show them different plants, different methods of irrigating, different methods of pathway making, and different things. So that's how it helped my clients. Because
they could visualize it and just really see it.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe sometimes some things about what will be.
Right.
And it's all in your mind. Would you say, because like when I pulled up just today, just walking up that main driveway and seeing that first garden on the right there, that it's like a lot of perennial grasses and things like that. That right there, I mean, is just a perfect example of what can be done with just simple things like perennial grasses. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. It looks like something out of a magazine. What are your best practices, I should say, for your designing?
Well, one of my first rules, I used to teach landscape design also at Merritt College, and one of my first rules is plant in masses. Don't plant one plant here, one plant here. It's better if you make a mass of something. It makes more of a statement. And so that grass garden is masses, drifts of grasses, the same kind, but one drift next to another that contrasts. So when I built that garden, the first thing I did was make a pathway, sort of a curvilinear pathway, wide enough so at least 2 people could walk side by side. And then in those areas between the pathways, I would put drifts of different kinds of grasses. Some of them are evergreen, some of them are deciduous, some of them, I don't know if you noticed, there's a Muhlenbergia capillaris, which is the pink flower, which is very
the pink
beautiful.
muley grass.
Yeah, pink muley grass.
Those bracts that come up and then the sunshine goes through them. I mean, come on, it's beautiful.
It's very nice, and I loved that grass, so I put one drift of that, and of course then you have to have accents. You can't just have different drifts. You need an accent in there, so I would put miscanthus, the tall,
give you that vertical, showy.
Yeah, the vertical thing that gives you good accent, and then a few trees to give a little bit of shade, and those are the ginkgo trees down there. There's 5 ginkgo trees. So this time of year, they're nice because they're bright yellow, so it's a good accent in the fall.
Truly. Well, you're up here. I mean, can you describe where we are? So this is called Dawn Gardens.
Dawn Gardens, and we're elevation 1,300 feet, so we don't get any snow or very little snow. And it's in Grass Valley, way out in the country. It's a place where it's sort of out in the sticks. People say this is out in the sticks. It's way out, but that's sort of what I wanted. I wanted to be away from all the population areas, and it's quiet here. It's very quiet. And
it's pristine.
Yeah, this area is live oaks, pines, and ponderosa pines, and a lot of manzanita and a lot of poison oak. So when I first bought this place, I had to clear all the manzanitas and poison oak out. So it took a year to clear out the lot and to make the pathways, and then I hired a bobcat or a bulldozer with a driver to bulldoze the pathways. Wherever I put the flags in, he would bulldoze a road or a path. And so now I have 2 miles of paths and roads. And then the irrigation went in next. In the middle of the road, we'd put the main line, and then we start putting plants in. So we started planting, about 20 years ago. And so everything you see here is 20 years old or less.
It's incredible. I'm sure I would urge our listeners to go to the YouTube video that I'm sure we're going to create with this, because it is super breathtaking, and there's so much. Can you describe the fall color that we're seeing right now, and some of the trees that are? I know we discussed it a little bit on our tour, but if you could discuss some of the trees and that you have out there that are popping right now, that are just so vibrant.
Yeah. Trees that start in October with fall color would be the dogwoods, the Sierra dogwoods, and they're behind the house, and they are bright red, and then they're finishing up now, middle of November, and now Japanese maples are starting, and of course they are bright red and orange. And then along the driveway is 16 hornbeams, and they're bright yellow, following the driveway down to the gate. And then we have the most spectacular one now is the smoke tree, which is bright orange.
I saw that, the Catinus.
Yeah, Catinus, very, very nice.
I was like, that thing looks like it's on fire. It is. The color is like, it looks unreal.
Yeah, and there are many different kinds of shrubs that have fall color. Over there in the perennial garden, echinanthus, and we have a lot of burning bush, which is a euonymus alata, bright red. And we have a vine growing up the pine, which is bright red leaves. That's the California grape, a variety called Rogers Red. And that's...
The leaves on that thing,
Yeah,
I mean, they were like dinner
leaves.
plate size.
Yeah, huge leaves. And
you mentioned that pine is the largest specimen of its species in the world?
In the world, yeah. The guy came from the University of Washington down here to verify that. He measured the height, and he said, yeah, this is the biggest one. And he wrote a book on the biggest trees in the world, not only pines, but oaks and spruces and everything. And he said, this is the only biggest tree in the world where you can drive right up to it on an asphalt driveway.
Right.
All the others you have to hike miles to see it.
General Sherman and all those ones,
Yeah. So
what'd you name this one?
I don't have a name for this one, but I got a plaque. I got a little plaque at the base.
If you can't think of one, it's gotta be Barry.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is beautiful. It's a huge, massive tree. Actually, I mean, it towers over most of the trees around it.
Yeah.
To say this is a beautiful garden is an understatement. But if somebody at home wants to kind of create their own slice of paradise, but obviously a much smaller area, what are some of the elements or concepts that they can take from what you have here? I see a lot of people are walking around taking pictures. Maybe I'm sure this garden has inspired a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But someone who's listening right now, how can we inspire them to maybe use some of the concepts and ideas and some of your methods? How can we do that on a smaller scale for our own homes?
Well, like I did from the beginning, I started collecting plants. Then I had to find a place to plant them. And then I started to have to research, well, where is a good place to plant them? So you divide your yard into zones, a sun zone, a shade zone, a hard soil or a good soil. And you try to have plants that fit those zones and try to plant in masses or in groups, not individual. And therefore the garden becomes more harmonious and flows more naturally. And so the first thing you have to do when you want a garden is figure out, well, where are you going to get the water? Can you afford the water? Is your well deep enough? Or can you afford the city water if you've got city water? And if you have city water, I recommend highly using a drip, because city water is clean. You don't really have to filter that much, you know. And so if you've got the water taken care of and you've got the pathway sort of outlined, then you can just have fun buying plants.
Your pathways are kind of inviting. Each one makes you kind of walk down it. Can you describe the spiral garden that you on the tour you got to show me?
Yeah.
What's the spiral garden?
The spiral garden starts at one of the main roads and spirals around 3 times in a circle and ends up at an olive tree, a fruitless olive tree. And at the base of that olive tree is a sculpture, is a mosaic sculpture. And so you can see that's the end of the path. And then if you walk backwards 3 times and end up where you started, you walked a half a mile. And so it's a good exercise path. Most of the plants along those paths in that spiral garden are drought tolerant. And so they are plants that don't need much care. I don't do much in that garden except rake the leaves, occasional deadheading, but not a lot of work in that garden. But it's interesting because a lot of people would like a garden like that. There's not much maintenance, but it looks nice, you know, and so...
I think beautiful, low maintenance is, I think, a target for a lot of us.
Yeah, so a lot of my clients who would come here would tell me, oh, they like low maintenance. So I showed them this spiral garden, and they liked it. So I could recreate something like that in their garden.
So, Barry, we're here on a very special day. It's kind of like an open house day. You've opened your garden up to the public. I've seen smiling people walking around, cookies and hot drinks. I'm loving it. What's it like to have a landscape like this that you've spent a couple decades working on? It is just the target of so many different photographers and plant lovers want to come check it out. What's it like having people come to visit your garden and for you to kind of scoot them around on these tours?
Mm-hmm. Well, I am very fortunate to be able to live in this garden and grow plants that I love. And I want to share my knowledge. I want to share the beauty of plants because I just love plants. And so 3 times or 4 times a year, I have open houses where people can come and walk around and take pictures. People who come here can learn things. There's 3,000 different species or varieties here.
Wow.
And they're labeled. Most of them are labeled so that they can learn something. And they can get ideas of how to landscape, how to make accents, how to make groups. And this time of the year in the fall, it's for the fall color. People like to come and look at the trees that are the fall color. And I have another one in the middle of March where the daffodils are blooming. I have 50,000 daffodils.
Oh, just a couple.
Yeah. And then in May, I have the roses blooming, so I have an open house then. And then usually another open house in June for perennials blooming. And I usually have coffee out for them, and I have donuts and scones and turnovers, things for them.
You had me at donuts.
Yeah.
Every kind of area of Dawn Gardens kind of has its own unique personality. Is that on purpose?
Yeah, I wanted to have different collections of different plants. And so I have a rose garden, I have a heather garden, I have a grass garden, I have a bog garden, about 15 different gardens, each one with a different characteristic, different kinds of plants. but it shows a wide variety of plants that you can use in your garden depending on your environment.
What is your perspective on mulch in the garden? How important is it to the health of your own garden here, and should folks be considering using a lot of mulch in their own landscapes?
Yeah, I use a lot of mulch. I buy 100 yards at a time, maybe twice a year, 100 yards. Because it's 8 acres, and I don't want to have any weeds. And I'm a little bit fastidious about that. I don't like weeds. And so I buy mulch. I put 2 inches of mulch everywhere we plant to smother the weeds, to add amendments, and gradually the worms come up and bring some of the amendments into the soil. The soil is improved, and it cools the soil, especially in the hot days, conserves water. So the mulch is one of the biggest things about how this garden survives, is that it preserves water and it adds organic matter to the soil. And so that's why I buy so much. And it's probably every 3 years I'll add a little more if the plants haven't covered yet. If the plants cover, then I don't add any more. But if the plants still are slow growing and I'll add a little more mulch, because I want the whole place covered with mulch. Now, a lot of times people don't like it because it's sort of a brownish look, but within a month, the leaves from the oak trees fall and it looks just like the natural duff. It just, you never really know that there's mulch underneath all of that. And it really preserves the garden.
I could tell on the way, I'm like, wow, for how big and this landscape is, and it's kind of wild. There's a lot of elevation change. Mm-hmm. I don't think I saw, there's not a lot of weed pressure out here, but I do see a lot of mulch being used. So it makes total sense.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
For somebody who's starting out doing their own garden, what is like the first most important thing to consider when they're starting their own landscape or garden for success? Is there something that you fall back on, or where should they begin?
The thing is about gardening, my idea is I want to have something in bloom every month of the year. I want to have some flowers sometime every month of the year, so that I love flowers. But in the fall, the flowers are outcompeted by the fall color. I mean, every leaf is colorful, so I don't really need so much in the fall. But the rest of the year, I love having flowers, daffodils in the spring and roses in the summer. And so you have to plan that out. You've got to say, well, okay, the garden's going to start with the daffodils, and then some other bulbs, a little bit later bulbs, and then the iris, and then the roses, and then the lilies, so that there's always something somewhere in the garden always blooming. So you have to sort of plan that out before you start planting.
The bees must love you.
Yeah, the bees, there's a lot of bees here. There's a guy down the road who has a lot of hives, so I think I feed all these bees.
Oh, yeah. He better, I hope you get hooked up with a little dab of honey every now and then. Yeah. That is cool. What do you think? So you've gone to university for this. You had a huge, career in this field. What has been the best piece of advice or lesson that you've kind of learned along the way?
I've learned that you got to work hard. You can't sit in your sofa and just think it's going to happen by itself. You've got to work hard. And either that or you have to have money to hire people to do it. But if you keep plugging on, keep planting, keep maintaining, you can have a beautiful garden. The thing is, don't think that it's ever done. It's never done. It's always something to do. There's always something to develop.
That's the fun part.
Yeah, and that's the fun part. That's right.
Well, Barry, this has been fantastic. It's been a total honor to get to meet you and learn from you and actually just see firsthand what all that work you were talking about doing, what it really kind of turns into. And if it takes work to create something like this, then I'm up for it because this is absolutely impressive. So thank you so much for an incredible career building all beautiful landscapes all across the Bay Area. But really, honestly, just thank you so much for letting us come here today.
Okay, thank you for coming.
All right, we are back from our interview. Big thank you to Barry Friesen, the legend there at Dawn Gardens. Thank you so much for opening everything up to us. We were there actually during an open house, and there was just the public was there as well, just touring the gardens and walking around. We got to run into some listeners of the show.
That was cool.
Yeah,
Very
that was cool. But Kevin, I'm curious, after listening back to that, what do you think are the biggest takeaways that we can take from Barry and utilize in our own gardens?
Well, thank you to Barry. He is the boss. He is like the garden Gandalf, just honestly a wizard out there of the garden trait. I loved his energy, his experience, just talking with him. I could tell he was so passionate and just in love with plants and gardening. The takeaways for me that we can learn from him, because it's easy just to be blown away by the sheer beauty and scale of what he's created. Honestly, I want to clap, and my hat's off to him. It's wonderful what he's done. Takeaways: mulch. Even with him in that massive landscape, he's like, I mulch all year, every year. Every year I'm adding mulch. He did a great job of utilizing plants that really were climate adapted. A lot of natives up there, a lot of Mediterranean plants and plants that really can tolerate low levels of water, but irrigation was sent everywhere, all over that landscape, and he even had some sprays to the areas of plants that required it. So knowing kind of what to water and how to water is crucial. And for him, it's the drip and the micro sprays and whatnot.
Can I throw out there? I think that one of the things that really resonated with me is the way he was grouping stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I love this term for it too, the drifts, right?
Yes.
And what he's doing is he's grouping similar plants together in clusters and drifts, and it results in this very natural landscape. And I think I'm learning I'm really attracted to that natural flow.
From afar, it looks like a painting, right?
Right.
The plants are kind of dancing together. You get these nice streaks and swirls and families of plants kind of living together in these little colonies amongst each other. The taller ones are in the back of your view. Then you have some of your specimen trees, like the maples and the dogwoods you brought up.
Man.
And he had some really cool specimens as well. That bald cypress was wild to look at. The foothill pine was really cool. The record holder.
The biggest one in the world.
Yes. So, but yeah, I think you're right, Austin. A lot of people, like I said earlier, people sometimes you know what you kind of want, but you don't know how to get there. And by some people I'm going to go linear and just everything's going to be stacked in a line. But he had everything. All of his trails were curved. Everything kind of didn't have a straight edge to it.
Right.
It had this more natural, organic feel. So when you're in the garden running around, you could tell it's well maintained and kept, but it still has this. You still feel like you're just in nature, a part of nature.
Yeah, it was the best.
For sure.
Oh, man. So if you are listening and you want to see what we're talking about, there are some videos that we can share with you. So I'm going to go ahead and link in the episode description, link to Kevin's video. I'm going to put a video up. And then there's also some beauty shots of the property that Barry had a videographer go out there and do, and I'm going to link to that as well. I want you guys to be able to soak this in and see it for what it is and get inspired. So please go ahead and check it out and fall in love with it like we did, because it's very moving.
I did not want to leave. Barry was actually telling me that the property is sadly in a way up for sale. Did you hear about that,
Right,
Austin? So
yeah.
it's up for sale. So it's out of my price range right now, Austin, but I've got a plan.
Okay.
We just need all of our listeners to go get maybe 4,000 to 5,000 other people each to start listening to the podcast.
Let's pull together the podcast group.
Yeah, we need it.
And we need to go buy this place.
I would love it. So please, if you're interested, look it up, man. Incredible property. And he wants it to go to somebody who hopefully will have the love for it too.
And maybe that's you. Maybe that's one of our listeners. That would be so cool if we could help connect him with a legit buyer.
Well, let's do like a Bert and Ernie kind of thing. And I'll put my wife and kids they'll live in a shack in the city.
Let's do it.
It's so beautiful. So thank you again to Barry Friesen for having us out there.
Yeah.
So beautiful and amazing. Thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in each and every week. Until next time, garden friends, happy gardening to you all. And please,
Never stop growing.